You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we have a very special guest, but first, a word about our partner. Supio is an agentic AI platform that's helping plaintiff lawyers and law firms leverage AI across the entire case lifecycle. So that's intake through litigation. Supio is going to help you out, navigate it for you. And they are currently integrated with Westlaw, which is a new partnership. So that's pretty crazy. Congrats to Supio on your integration with Westlaw. I use law in Westlaw in law school, so that's legit. So thanks to our friends at Supio, and back to our special guest. We welcome in Stephen Gursten. How are you?
You're doing great, Benny. How are you?
Good, good. So an attorney at Michigan Auto Law, nationally recognized trial lawyer, author, speaker, and one of the country's foremost authorities on auto accident, truck accident, traumatic brain injuries, and no-fault insurance litigation. Steve has recovered the largest reported auto and truck accident settlements in Michigan history and has consistently been recognized among the top 50 attorneys in Michigan, past president of American Association for Justice Litigation Groups, and most recently honored with the Gary Pillersdorf Courage Award by the Belly Society. Congratulations on that. That was last month.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Welcome in, Stephen. Good to finally meet you.
Really nice to finally meet you and honored to be here.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. So welcome to Lawyer Stories. We want to go through your story a little bit, how you got to where you are, how you're doing at your firms now. And so tell us from the beginning, Steve, what inspired you to become a lawyer? Did you have that moment? Some people did, some people didn't. How about yourself?
No, I just kind of took the Scott Galloway approach. If you've ever heard him talk, don't follow your passion, follow what you know you're going to be really, really good at.
Okay.
And that will be very financially rewarding, and then you will reap the benefits of that. And that was kind of the path I took. I knew I was never going to be a math major, but I loved the thought of being a lawyer. I love the thought of trial. I love the business of law.
Right.
I found it also interesting, and it's just been a wonderful 31 years now of being a lawyer.
So did you grow up in Michigan?
I did.
What part?
I did. So I grew up in Metro Detroit and went to the University of Michigan for college.
Go Blue. Yep.
Go Blue. I went to Fordham for law school when I thought I wanted to work on Wall Street and be a silk stocking corporate lawyer.
Really? Okay. So you went out there because you thought maybe you had a different path, or you were going to work on Wall Street. So
I absolutely picked a Wall Street feeder school. That's why I chose Fordham.
Isn't that numbers though? Wouldn't you have had to deal with numbers and all that?
Yeah, but it's Fordham is known, along with NYU and Columbia, if you graduate top of your class, you're going to end up at a good firm in Wall Street or, in New York City. And that's back then when you don't know anything about anything. You're 21, 22, trying to make life decisions. I thought that was the most glamorous, romantic future until I actually saw what people do and what billable hours mean, and
wow.
What your life is like for 10, 15 years trying to make partner at these firms. And I thought, personal injury sounds better.
Yeah, wow. So how long did it take you to hightail it back to Michigan?
So I was actually very, very lucky. When I was in New York City, I worked for Tom Moore. At the time, it was Kramer, Dilloff, Tussle, Duffy, and Moore. Tom Moore, Judy Livingston are both inner circle of advocates. I think when I was there Tom had 70 separate $1 million plus verdicts at the time. He's still trying cases and going at it, but I caught the bug, and he really liked me because I went to Fordham, and he was a Fordham alum, so he hired me, and I worked at the firm, and I just loved everything about it, except there was one problem, which is when you were at the top medical malpractice law firm in New York City, and every case is a multi-million dollar case, how do you ever try your first case? How do you ever get in the courtroom, other than being his bag man and second chairing cases for the rest of your life? And I knew I didn't want to do that. So I got lucky because it was 1995. And in 1995, that's when Allstate and then State Farm followed shortly thereafter. They unveiled their MIST program, which was minimal impact soft tissue. And what it really meant was, for the first time in 20 years, these insurance companies were forcing lawyers to go to trial on low impact vehicle damage soft tissue cases. Okay. So for 20 years, imagine, where everything settled either with the adjusters by demands, or worst came to worst, you put in arbitration, got it settled that way, made a payday. You had an entire generation of lawyers that had no idea how to try cases. Wow. And I came out at a time where all of a sudden, these lawyers are getting killed left and right. They don't know how to try cases, and there was a lot of opportunity. So honestly, I passed the bar. I got sworn in, and 3 weeks later, I tried my first case.
Wow. Okay.
And I knew that was what I wanted to do, at least back then. I wanted to be the best trial lawyer in Michigan, and I wanted other lawyers to refer me cases. Yep. And I really thought that was going to be my career. And for the first 10 years, that was my career. And I got very lucky because my very first year, and I'm still the youngest lawyer in Michigan history to get $1 million verdict.
Wow.
But my first year, I was trying a really tough whiplash Allstate case, $10,000 offer in Oakland County, which is a very conservative venue. The jury came back at over $1 million. And, from there, it was, even though it was just like a kid, what it goes to show you is that lawyers will always come out of the woodwork to refer you cases if you can do something that other people can't do, if you're able to distinguish and differentiate yourself from all the other lawyers. And at the time, I was basically the only lawyer in Michigan that was willing and eager and wanted to try these soft tissue cases.
And that was the MIST thing where you had to go to trial in Michigan. So where was the breakoff when you went back from New York to Michigan? Like when was that? Because if you said to yourself, like, oh, I'm working for this med mal brag, like, how do you say, like, okay, well,
how do I come home?
I'm helping with all these amazing, like, big money cases. How do you put those blinders on and just say, I'm going to Michigan to try these cases? Like, what was the turning point there?
So it was two things. One, I was very close with another lawyer at Tom's firm who basically lived on planes. And, his whole life was on planes, taking Dr. Depp's and defending Dr. Depp's. And I kind of knew, like, that was going to be my life for the next couple of years. Right. And that's a hard life. I wasn't what I really wanted. And at the same time, I got really lucky because my dad had a personal injury law firm here in Michigan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I remember one day, it never even dawned on me to come home. But, I'm kind of like talking to him like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get in trial and try my first case. And he starts laughing. He's like, if you want trials, come home. We have a whole bunch,
and that was sort of a lead in to, like, the new, like, MIST, like the soft tissue thing. Was that sort of?
So it was all the same time. It was kind of a Malcolm Gladwell, just being in the right place at the right time. Okay. And I really believe that, by the way, because I really wonder if I hadn't come out in 1995 and started getting those verdicts back then right away, I wonder how much different my life would be today, right? Because, all of a sudden, as soon as I got that first verdict, it put me on the map. And then I was very lucky. 2 years later, I got a $4 million verdict on a brain injury case,
Right.
where the person had worked for 8 months, and about 10 law firms had turned her down.
Right.
And, all of a sudden people started referring me brain injury cases.
So you did say something interesting earlier. I mean, everything's interesting, but you mentioned that, people will come out of the woodworks to like refer a case to somebody that can do something different. So like, what was different about you? I mean, this young guy, like trying these cases, like willing to go to court, like you had this experience somehow, and you obviously were fighting for your client, youngest person to get $1 million.
Yeah, I think I was probably just dumb enough to think I could win those cases at that time, right?
Come on, that's not. We're looking for some high level answer here. Come on, man.
No, I mean, look, I think so. First, part of it was just, again, right place, right time, because you had literally for 20 years lawyers not trying cases, and Warren Buffett has a great saying that when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked.
Okay.
And it wasn't a pretty sight, Benny. There were a lot of really naked lawyers out there who didn't know how to try cases.
Right.
And I knew that's what I wanted to do, because at the end of the day, here's always been my thought process is we were all kind of dumb enough to go into a profession where the supply is greater than the demand. And the reality is, if there's not a way to make yourself different and remarkable, in a profession where you essentially are a commodity, you're a fungible commodity, because there's always another lawyer willing to take that case. If you're not able to make yourself remarkable and different, I always worried how do you not struggle? How do you not get lumped in with the hundreds or thousands of other lawyers all trying to get the exact same cases?
I mean, yeah. And one of the things I wonder is like, what does it really take to say, oh, okay, like I could get you a settlement for like 50 grand, but you're thinking in the back of my mind, I could risk it and then maybe get like, 15 million or whatever it is. Like, what does it take, like as a lawyer, to just kind of like recommend? Obviously you have to tell the client, I guess, like what the settlement offer is, but like, what does it take to just like go forward and say, I can win a trial? Like, how much like confidence do you really need?
Listen, the hardest thing in the world truly is having your client who you like turning down a lower end of reasonable settlement offer.
Okay.
But back then, you got to remember, all the offers were basically zero.
Yep.
So there was no downside.
Right.
And if you're willing, and this is the one thing that I really would recommend to any lawyer who wants to try cases, is you really have to have no ego. And you have to be willing to get your head kicked in. You have to be willing to take your L's, because I'm sorry, but there's no such thing as a lawyer that's never lost a case. Yeah. And, there's another great saying, which is, you're not a real lawyer until you win a case you should have lost and you lose a case you should have won. And there's a lot of truth in that, because juries are a variable. So
yeah, that's true.
So at the time, for me, it was great because I wanted to try every case, and it wasn't like we were turning down real offers. So if my client turns down a $10,000 offer, that doesn't move the football. There's no real downside.
Right.
So all the risk is to the insurance company if you're willing to go in there and try the case, because you have unlimited upside.
That's true. That's true, because jury can come back. You never know. It's kind of a wild card sometimes. Again, you don't know who's in there, how much they can like really take it to the moon.
Yeah, but listen, there are ways. It's not gambling, right? It's not like you're going to Vegas and playing craps. What you're doing is you're taking calculated risks with trial. And the other thing you have to remember is, for us, all the incentive is to try these cases. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is, if you lose, it's just one case. I mean, maybe, 5 years later, the person gets in another car accident. Maybe they come back. But for the most part, these are one-off cases. Mm-hmm. And if you if you do things the right way, if you really prepare, if you use the focus groups, if you have the jury consultants, I mean, now if you're using AI and doing AI focus groups like we're doing, and there's Moneyball type focus groups now. I mean, there's ways where you can take calculated risks, where the odds are more likely than not you're going to pop and you're going to get a really good verdict. And you got to remember, at the end of the day, I say all this, and 9 times out of 10, these cases still settle, because if you look at it from the defense's point of view, the last thing they want to do is try a case. Because the reality is, for most defense lawyers, they know if they get popped, they could lose their entire book of business. They could lose a client that could be hundreds of cases. So they have every incentive, as long as you're being reasonable and you're helping them to help give you a great settlement at the end of the case, they have every incentive not to want to try the case. We have every incentive to want to try the case as a plaintiff attorney.
Right.
So when you remember where the incentives are, the incentive structures for a plaintiff lawyer versus a defense lawyer, it lets you play the game and really be able to get great settlements for your clients.
And you does that refer mostly to like insurance companies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but any type of lawyer that has a book of business.
Okay.
So insurance is easy because one insurance company could be 300 cases for that fine.
Right.
And if you're the defense lawyer, every single case that comes in, the first thing you do is you sit down with your partners and you look at it and you say, well, we could put 2 lawyers and a paralegal on this, and we'll probably be able to bill X number of dollars. And they do that analysis with every single case in their firm.
Yeah.
So the last thing they want to do is lose that entire book of business. And what that means, though, is that if you've got,
I see.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you've got a really likable client, and if you've got a really good case, they don't want to try those cases. And I'll just say one other thing, just real quick. So I've been now in 14 states where other lawyers have brought me in to try cases with them, take over cases. I do a lot of trucking. I do a lot of brain injury. I do a lot of trial.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because the better the case, the better it is, the fewer the number of defense lawyers there really are out there who will try those cases. And when it comes to like brain injury or trucking, there's really only a handful that really go around the country getting dropped in, parachuting in at the last minute to try these cases. There's really not that many great defense trial lawyers anymore.
Right. I feel like they all, well, I mean, a lot of them, not all of them, but want to be on the plaintiff side. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot. Not all of them. I have friends who are like defense, but it's kind of, I feel like the opportunity, the ceiling, but just like the actual, what you're doing is might be a little more noble. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it, my friends or family who might be in defense.
Oh, let's talk bad about them. It's fine. But I mean, look, I think what you can say is there's the mean average plaintiff lawyer actually makes less than the average defense lawyer.
Okay.
And your brain, whether it's dopamine or norepinephrine or what have you, but as a plaintiff attorney, you do take on a lot of risk. And you got to be able to sleep at night, and you have to be able to be comfortable knowing that you could have, a couple $100,000 in costs on a case and get zero. So you have to be wired a certain way to be a plaintiff lawyer, to be a successful plaintiff lawyer. And really, it's not intelligence. It's your ability really to handle stress and risk. And what I've seen is some of the biggest talkers out there, the people who are like the brashest on the listservs, with other people's money. It's amazing how many of them fold when it's their money at in the middle of the night.
Right.
And defense lawyers sleep pretty well because they can make a really nice life, and they know, so it's different. It's different.
It's a different mentality.
Different mentalities.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like this little podcast I got going on here for the moment. But so why, you mentioned your dad, personal injury from Michigan, but like, why for you representing like seriously injured people rather than, I know we talked about going to New York and, what drives you to keep doing that and representing these very injured people, especially after, you did receive like the largest settlement in history. So what keeps you going every day, Steve?
You know, at a certain point, you look back on your life, and it is such a wonderful thing to be able to say that you changed people's lives, that you really, truly made a difference, that you really, truly changed people's lives in a meaningful, better way, and that you had a really nice life doing it, where you were also financially rewarded. There just aren't that many jobs out there where you can say that. And
Yeah, that's true.
And for me, it is a blessing. I am very lucky. I'm one of the few lawyers that really does love his job. I love being able to help people. My dad actually said it best, believe it or not. So you got to imagine I am 21 or 22, and I'm thinking about coming home, and we're having this conversation, and I'm working for probably the most elite personal injury law firm in New York City at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was expecting, but I think I was expecting him to be like, here's the red carpet, come on, we'd love to have you. And he didn't say that at all. What he actually told me, and this has always meant a lot to me, was he said, you really can't come home unless you can tell me that you really, truly like people and you really, truly want to help them. And more than anything, I think that was what has been the driver, for me at least, in a profession where too many of my competitor law firms have turned into mills. And it's really not about helping people. It's about how every phone call averages out to, $4,000 or $6,000. And, they can practice law however they want. But for me, at least, to be able to handle fewer cases, but really change people's lives, to really be able to be the white knight that made a huge difference for them and changed everything for them when they're in pain, when there's anxiety, when there's tremendous stress, when there's financial hardship, when they don't know how they're going to pay their bills, when they don't know how they're going to handle future surgeries, and everything that is part of a catastrophic accident. To me, that is really meaningful work. And at the end of the day, I could say it was a life well lived.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Nothing better than that. I mean, that's incredible. So speaking of that, any mentors, like who are a couple of your mentors along the way?
So back in New York, Tom Moore, Judy Livingston, I basically skipped almost my entire second year of law school. I just didn't go to class. I would just go to trial with them.
Oh, really?
It was the best. It was the best on the job training you could ever have.
Yeah.
My dad obviously has been an enormous mentor, and I'm so thankful because as I get older and a little bit wiser, I realize just how wise he has been my whole life.
Yeah.
I read voraciously. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
So I have my favorite authors that have helped me in the business world, in the business sense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call them necessarily mentors, but I would say they've really helped.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned like authors and podcasts along with other people. I think that's important too. So you've recovered the largest reported auto and truck accident settlements in Michigan history. Beyond those numbers, like what do you believe truly separates elite trial lawyers from just the good ones?
Well, you have to keep trying cases.
Yeah.
It is a skill. It is a trade. It is a craft. For me, it really comes down, I think, to the biggest differentiator from what I see is, even though this is our job, even though this is what we do, I'm always horrified, honestly, by how bad most lawyers are with the medicine.
Okay.
And I just don't understand it, Benny, because this is what we do every day. How can you not know more about whether it's a herniated disc or a brain injury or what have you than the doctors you depose when this is what you've been doing every day for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years?
Right.
If this is our craft and this is our trade, you should know the medicine inside and out. And the reason doctors get away, especially these IME doctors, these defense doctors, get away with what they do is because lawyers can't catch them when they're playing games on the medicine.
Interesting.
And when you truly understand the medicine, it allows you to explode the underlying value of these cases. So I'll give you just one quick example.
Yeah.
Everyone always says, there must be something special. Like, Steve, how could you get $1 million on a shitty $10,000 whiplash case with Allstate? And it wasn't that I was so special. Trust me, I wasn't. I was a brand new baby lawyer. I was probably making every mistake you could make. But what I did do was I used to come in with giant banker boxes of, I'd have 60 or 70 peer-reviewed journal articles that I would use for cross.
Wow.
Or for direct. And every one of these articles would talk about how a, quote, soft tissue, connective tissue, a bulge, how it can be permanent. It can be permanently disabling. It can cause lifetime pain.
Okay.
So I wasn't letting a cynical adjuster or a defense lawyer just say silly, ridiculous, unfounded things. I was able to go to the medicine and show how every one of these cases actually is far more serious than most people might initially think.
It's amazing.
And when you do that, what you're doing is you're taking cases that most lawyers would settle for X, and you're really blowing them up, the value, and you're selling them for 3 or 4 times more. Or if you have the right jury, that's how you get $1 million.
Right.
Because they now believe that your client's going to have a lifetime of pain and impairment. So I really think, you have to know your trade. You have to know your craft. It's easier for me because I've been on the lecture and speaking circuit for years.
Right.
But I go to a lot of brain injury conferences, so I'm constantly listening and learning, constantly reading, and I'm a little bit of a nerd. Like
that's cool. I mean, was that really the real issue? Like with the nerve, that the one that you just described, like in the boxes, the journals, like was that really the?
Well, I think that was a huge difference maker.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I mean like the actual issue. Was that the actual issue, where they were kind of dismissing it, the defense and the defense?
Oh yeah,
and you were like, look,
I
pointed to multiple magazines that had it in there, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I would cross-examine one of these defense doctors, and I just go through each peer-reviewed journal article and ask if he agreed or disagreed. And by the end, the jury hated him. He looked like an absolute, like he was from Mars.
Wow.
But again, it's also tying it into real life, into analogies. So, for me, when I was growing up, Reggie White was one of the greatest football players of all time. The Minister of the Interior.
Eagles. Yeah.
Well, not only was he one of the nastiest, toughest, meanest defensive linemen to ever play the game, he had to quit the sport because of a tiny, tiny, tiny little disc bulge.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to court and a defense lawyer says, oh, it's just a tiny, tiny, tiny little disc bulge, it's meaningless, no effacement on the cecal sac, nerve root, spinal cord, this is nothing, this is congenital, this is not something that produces pain. You could remind the men on the jury, especially that watch football, it's serious enough that the toughest player you've ever seen on TV had to retire because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tying it into real life, but knowing the medicine, it's hard work and it's tedious and it's hard because, let's face it, you come back to the office after a death and you've got 200 emails and 20 phone calls to return. You really have to make an effort to take the time to really learn, whether it's learning the trucking regs, learning brain injury, learning trial advocacy. But if you're a new lawyer and you're listening to this podcast, I would tell you, like, your next 10 years should be creating a plan to master your trade, to master your craft. Right. And that is what's going to differentiate you, to your point, to your question, that is what's going to separate you from everybody else.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer. I love that. And I agree with that 100%. Besides that, not maybe like putting in the time to master their craft, like what is a mistake that you see other lawyers making, trial lawyers making today, mostly? Maybe besides like not putting in the time to really understand the medicals and those sort of things.
I would say at the end of the day, our job is communication, and it's persuasion, and it's psychology. And when you see lawyers that still think because they were told by some partner in their law firm when they started that if you ask for too much money, for example, just as one example, you could offend a jury and you're going to get punished and your client's going to get punished. And I will tell you there's almost no such thing, because if you learn things like the science and psychology of anchoring, for example, and there have been studies, there's actually an amazing study on this at Suffolk Law Review. What it basically showed is that when you ask for more money, not only do you become more persuasive and credible, but it also helps you in other aspects of your case. Like, for example, in a contested liability case, a jury is actually more likely to find in your favor on negligence, on liability, because you ask for such a large dollar figure. So, you should always be a student, and the psychology of whether it's anchoring or the rule of threes or just trying to chunk things down to make things more understandable for your average juror who, let's face it, has a 5th to 7th grade education level. Most people on juries now, the latest study I read say they are actually not yet at a 7th grade reading level. Which means that they can't even read Animal Farm, by George Orwell, and be able to understand it. So it's being able to chunk things down into bite-sized pieces where people can easily put them away and compartmentalize them in their mental filing cabinets, and explaining where it goes and why it's important and why they should be paying attention. And then we are sometimes victims of our own education, and we forget how hard it is for jurors. So, like closing argument, when I teach trial advocacy, everything they teach us in law school about closing is wrong. It isn't a summary. It isn't a summation of the evidence. What you should be doing is teaching your jurors, the ones who are predisposed to want to find in your favor, how to argue your case when they are deliberating with other jurors, and how to be able to answer and rebut the arguments that they will hear in the jury room when they're deliberating. That is what you want to do. Because, again, if most people have a 7th grade education level, they might not really be armed and able to do that. And we can't take that for granted. So, again, just being a student, whether it's psychology, communication, persuasion, being able to relate to the people on your jury and trying to make it easier for them, because let's face it, trial is boring and tedious for them, and it's often mind-numbingly boring, and they don't want to be there to begin with.
You're giving them the tools to go back in the jury room and basically say, guys, this is why he's
exactly.
This is why we need to render this verdict or whatever.
Exactly. And if the defense says this, if the defense says this, this is what you say. This is why that's wrong.
Wow.
And literally spoon feeding it to them almost like that, because you're giving them the ability to help you, and they want to help you. They just sometimes aren't able to or don't know how.
Wow. That's an interesting nugget. I've never heard that before. I love it. Really interesting. Where do you teach trial ed? Do you teach trial ed?
I do. I teach all over.
Okay.
I like I said, I've been on the seminar circuit. Some of the law schools in Michigan, I've been adjunct.
Okay.
And I just mostly through MAJ. The Michigan Trial Lawyers, the American Association for Justice.
Yep.
And then various other organizations.
So, speaking of AAJ truck and litigation, you were one of 3 lawyers ever to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. What does that mean?
Makes me feel very old, but yes.
Wow. What does that mean to you? That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. It means I was one of the OGs, is what it means.
The OGs. Okay.
Yeah, it means in 2000. So I was the chair, I want to say in 2007. And you got to remember in 2006, 2007, there weren't 900 lawyers going to the ATAA trucking seminar every year. You know, there were really only a handful of lawyers around the country that really, really knew trucking, were really knee deep in the trucking regs and going out and taking safety director depths and what have you. And that was my start. I mean, so I was obviously doing very, very well with soft tissue and brain injury cases. The problem is you're really at the mercy of the policy limits of whoever the driver was that causes the crash. And I realized pretty early on that, trucking cases have bigger insurance policy limits. And if I'm going to try the same case, I'd rather try it with a trucking company that's got an insurance tower with $70 million and an individual that's got $20,000, right?
Yeah, why not?
So
sounds like the way to go to me.
You fish where the fish are, right?
So you have multiple firms. Like, tell me about that. Like, one thing I always sort of wonder, how do you keep a handle on all of them? I mean, I know everybody's like a professional, but if you're here and one firm's here, like, how do you maintain that quality at all of the different locations? And tell us a little bit about that.
So, look, the first and most important thing is it can't all be you.
Right.
There just are not enough hours to the day. And you really need a great team to help you. And you want to find people that are better than you and have collaborative skill sets. So I am very, very fortunate. I have an amazing CMO. I have an amazing COO, and I have an amazing office manager. And I could not function with 5 law firms right now if I didn't have that core team.
So is the core team just one team for all of them, or one set at each place?
So for the most part, because I normally will take over the management and marketing of these law firms. Okay. But if it's in an area, like let's say, for example, workers' comp, I don't know workers' comp. Okay. I don't want to know workers' comp. I don't want to be a workers' comp lawyer.
Right.
But I was very fortunate. I did know who the best work comp lawyers were in Michigan. And when I had the idea, I knew who to approach.
Okay.
So I knew they could handle the work at a very, very high level. I knew I could help them. So, for example, we use Vista as a consulting company. We go through the data on a basically every Friday, just looking at numbers, a quick 60,000 square foot overview. Mm-hmm. But, as long as they are producing results that are better than any other work comp law firm, for example, in the state, and I'm producing the cases and the dollars are flying, and you got a good team that you could rely on.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as it sounds. So the question then becomes, why do you want to do it? Right? And why do it separately as versus just one law firm that has many different, areas of practice. Mm-hmm. And for that, you just need to take a step back and look at the economics of the profession right now.
Right.
So we live in a world where you have today more dollars than ever before chasing cases. So the cost of case acquisition is going through the roof. TV, pay-per-click, radio, you name it. It's all becoming super expensive. LSA ads could be $10,000 a pop. So for most of your listeners in this podcast, it really isn't viable to go dollar for dollar with the big advertisers in your market. Mm-hmm. You don't want to match money cannons with John Morgan, right? You don't want to have to go, head to head with the top TV advertiser, because for the most part, it's very expensive. And what I've always thought was the money you don't spend on marketing, you keep as profit.
Right.
So the question then becomes, if you don't want to compete head to head on number of commercials, let's say, then are there other ways to attract and acquire great cases? And there are.
Yeah.
And look, the billboard lawyers, the TV lawyers, they're always going to get their share, right? There's a reason there's so many, because it does work. But for our generation, there is a large and growing and increasing number of people that don't want to call a billboard lawyer. They want to do their own research. And they're going to get on the internet and they're going to do their research. They're going to read reviews. They're going to use AI. They're going to do their Google reviews and research. And if you can be the top firm and really dig deep, not wide, meaning you really own that practice area, you are showing through your website and through AI or what have you, that you are the subject matter master of that area of law. There are going to be really, really good cases that are going to come out to seek you out. They're going to find you and want you to be their lawyer, no matter what area of law, whether it's trucking, Menmel, work comp, auto, you name it. And frankly, they tend to be better cases.
Yeah.
Because these people tend to have better jobs and they're a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And, you've been in the game for like 30 years, right? And so like, how have you seen, what have you seen transform? Like, how have you seen AI sort of creep in? And like, what are you using like in terms of AI, and like, how has that changed the way that you practice, or has it?
Oh, it absolutely has. And I'm a huge believer in AI. I mean, first, I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, in our lifetime, has there been anything that promises more change or more transformation than AI?
No.
Maybe the internet, when
Right.
20 years ago, but basically this is a generational change. We use 4 different AI programs, including Supio, which we really like. I think Supio's got a great product, and I'm very excited because they keep iterating it and making it better. So I guess what I would say to your question is, before AI, it was getting really, really hard to find great employees. And, part of it is just there's more opportunity right now and the world has changed. So, for example, really bright young women, a generation or 2 generations ago, may have been more likely to go to paralegal school than go to law school, more likely to become a nurse than become a doctor, right? And it's changed. And, the reality is these last 10, 15 years, it's gotten harder to find really, really great employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, the promise of AI is you no longer have to put up with a C-level employee, because they will be replaced.
Yeah.
And ideally, you're going to have a combination of both. You're going to have great people that are also very AI savvy, and that's going to explode their productivity and their efficiencies and make them much better at their job. But at the end of the day, it's not like it was 5 or 10 years ago, where sometimes you had to just put up with a B- secretary or B- paralegal.
Right. No, I get it.
Because you were terrified that you couldn't find anybody to replace her.
It's true.
So I think that the productivity promises of it, for me, the way I'm using AI in terms of focus groups right now, and for helping me with getting cases ready for trial, it's just been revolutionary, Benny. It is revolutionary.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything, and speaking of Supio, I mean, it takes your case from, just to give a little background, it takes your case from intake all the way through litigation. I know that there was a big concern out there, and we saw about the legal research, but it seems like that's taken care of because they have a nice relationship with Westlaw, official. Is there something that you wouldn't give AI to do for you? Like, is there something that you're just kind of like hands off? Like, I'm handling this myself. Like, as a lawyer, I'll always probably handle this myself. Is there anything like that?
I mean, for all the reasons that, every AI seminar starts with ethics, you have to be very careful with HIPAA and medical records and client confidentiality still. If you don't have, for example, like a Claude on an enterprise model, you really have to be very, very careful sharing sensitive information. But for the most part, no. I believe this is going to be the currency of our times, and you better be really good at using it. And if you are, it's a game changer. I mean, we have a mutual good friend, Jordan Jones, who I know has been a guest on your podcast. And, Jordan is very, very dear to me. I love him to death.
Yep.
He just created his own Agent Zero AI program to do his own pleadings.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, Benny, this is going to save his office hundreds of hours. Hundreds. I interviewed on Monday a lawyer who, God help me, is going to be my 25th lawyer.
Wow.
When I offer him a job tomorrow. But he's created his own AI program to do initial disclosures and interrogatories.
Wow.
And the things that you can do now are extraordinary.
It's wild.
It is wild.
It's truly wild. And shout out to Jordan, episode 2 and episode 213.
Shout out to Jordan. He's a special lawyer.
He really is. Great guy, too. What trends are you seeing in auto accident litigation that lawyers should be paying attention to over the next 5 years, or open that up to any type of litigation?
So is this the part of your podcast where we scare the hell out of your listeners now? So,
yes, let's do it.
Okay. So what I see happening is you have a confluence of two very dangerous trends. You've got, with MSO money and ABS money entering the profession with private equity and hedge funds, you are going to have more money than ever before. But at the same time, because of safety and technology changes, there absolutely will be fewer cases over the next 5 to 10 years. So you have this really downward vicious spiral of having more money than ever before, chasing fewer cases than ever before.
Interesting.
And you need to really think about where you're at and your strategy going forward in that type of world. Because again, I don't think the answer is to compete with people who have unlimited money cannons that are being funded by private equity, where they can almost have a Jeff Bezos type mentality where I don't care if I go negative and lose money for 5 years, if it's going to wipe out competitors in my market, which really likely can happen.
Yeah. Wow. So you recently received the Gary Pillersdorf Courage Award. What did receiving that award mean to you personally? Tell us a little bit about it.
So it means, thank you. That is a really, really special award for me, in part because I was very close with Gary Pillersdorf when he was alive.
Okay.
And for your listeners that don't know about Gary Pillersdorf, he was a one of a kind. He had tried hundreds of cases, and you just don't see lawyers that try hundreds of cases anymore.
Not at all. And
he had such a quick wit, and he and I had become close. The thing I remember most about Gary, just if I could just take 1 minute, because I think it's a special memory, is my daughter, when she was your daughter's age now.
Yep.
I would take her and my family to some of these seminars. Mm-hmm. And even though Gary was a magnificent trial lawyer and knew everybody in a room, he was also a card-carrying member of the Magicians Union, and he loved to perform magic.
Wow!
And he loved little kids and delighting them. And one of my favorite memories is when my daughter was tiny.
Yeah.
He took her out of a room of 400 lawyers where he had just finished speaking, plopped her on his lap, he only had one leg, by the way.
Okay.
Put her on his lap and performed magic tricks for her for a couple hours.
Couple hours?
Hours.
My goodness.
And my daughter was squealing with delight, it's just absolutely the happiest thing in the world. And he had so much joy from making her so happy that I think we were in Providence, Rhode Island for that. He found a magic store in Providence, and the next day went there and spent, I don't even know how much money, loaded up on a bunch of magic tricks, brought it back, and did magic for my daughter again the next day. So that was the kind of lawyer that Gary was. A real hero of the profession. And so fast forward now 20 years later, I have gotten in a very public legal battle with a really nasty insurance company here in Michigan.
Okay.
And I basically blew the whistle on them. They were I don't know how else to say it. They were taking possession and title of their own customers' vehicles after car accidents, making them sign over title, taking possession, and then rescinding the policies, cutting them off, but keeping the vehicle and the money. And they were doing this, and this insurance company, which is Cure Insurance, markets and targets demographically really the poor and minorities, and they really market aggressively in cities like Detroit and Battle Creek and Flint, where people really don't have access to justice, and they don't really have the money to go out and hire a lawyer. And they were, just the things I was seeing. So I blew the whistle. I started writing about them. I have a very successful legal blog as part of my website.
That's awesome.
And I wrote a blog about them, and they threatened to sue me. And I told them, go jump in a lake. And then they did sue me for defamation.
Wow.
And it's now been 2 years. It's an ongoing battle, but because of it, and this kind of goes to that larger theme of the good lawyers can do, right? So the irony is, if they had just ignored the damn blog, it'd probably be on page 6 right now, and nobody would have ever seen it again. But because they sued me, and because that made news,
right,
it has been stuck literally on page 1, spot 1 or 2 for people that are looking for cure for the last 2 years. But as a result, there have been front page exposés in the Detroit and Michigan newspapers about them.
Okay.
There have been TV stories about them.
Wow.
It actually gets better because the Michigan legislature, the Senate Insurance Committee, actually held a hearing about them and what they were doing.
Wow.
And as a result of what they were doing, for the first time ever in Michigan, we have the introduction right now of bad faith law, because in large part of insurance companies like Cure and what they're doing. And the insurance commissioner in the state issued a special bulletin aimed at Cure saying you can't steal people's cars, then cut them off and keep the cars and the money.
Wow.
So
amazing.
So we've really done a lot of good, and it's been all over the news. I've started my own website called When Cure Won't Pay.
Wow.
And I put all the TV and newspapers and radio interviews I've done on there, and
good for you.
All the blogs, and they are not happy with me.
Yeah.
They've recently complained that they were losing money, and at my last settlement conference, they were telling the judge, a federal court judge, they wanted to sue me for the differential between how much money they were making before I started speaking out about them and how much money they're losing right now. Wow. And they're blaming me for all of it.
That's amazing. Right? That's unbelievable.
So not the front page exposés about them, basically acting like the Soprano crime family and taking people's cars, but it's all me. So it's listen, I am proud of this because this is part of what I was talking about, where you can touch lives and make a big difference. Yeah. And, even if these people weren't injured, if they don't have the financial means to get a lawyer, to get help, and I'm able to help them through this, then it's all worth it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, you're a helper. They say look for the helpers.
Look for the helpers.
Yep. So is there even a cause of that? I should know this, but pardon me. Is there even a cause of action against against you for like a defamation when you're a company?
So
Like,
if there were actual defamation, then there could be a cause of action. This is just a slap lawsuit.
Okay.
This is just meant to cause me harassment and financial pain and make me pay legal bills.
I just figured it wouldn't have to be against a person. Like, how do you?
No, it's me and the law firm, and you can sue for defamation.
Okay.
They also initially added 11 other causes of action, and then we're on now their fourth complaint.
Oh, against you and the law firm. All right. I was looking at it the other way around.
They keep trying to drop counts so they don't have to produce discovery.
Yeah, I got you. No, I think I was looking at the other way around, Steve. I'm a little. All right.
No worries. It's been a while since we took the bar, right?
Got you. What's that?
It's been a while since we had to study for the bar exam.
Thank goodness. So one final question here, unless there's something else I've missed, but I want to know what your lawyer story, looking back, your whole story and how far, the journey has taken you, still helping people out. What does it mean to you today?
That's a great question. The answer, and I know it's going to sound like a platitude, and I apologize, but it's really not. It means everything to me. I am 56 years old. According to the mortality tables, I am on the back nine. I don't know which hole I'm on, but I'm on the back nine. And it really is meaningful to me that I could say at the end of my life, looking back, that I have helped and really made a difference for hundreds or thousands of people. And it is the ethos of our law firm. We deliberately take fewer cases, but we look them up harder. We take more serious cases. Mm-hmm. And, and we're not a mill, but we want to find people that are worthy of help. And we want to try to make their lives meaningfully better and different than they were before they came to us. And if I can do that and do that well and have the financial rewards to go along with that, to take care of my family and have a nice life, I'm very lucky.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable. Congratulations on such an amazing career. And it's
Thank you.
To see everything else that goes along with it. It's nice to finally meet you and get a chance to ask you some questions.
Benny, it flew by. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Great. Stay right there. Steve Gursten, everyone. What a pleasure. Everyone out there, thanks for tuning in. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourself. Cheers.